Alright, so I am super excited about today's video. It's one that I've wanted to do for a while, and I'm just stoked to get it out there and explore it a little bit with you guys. So it's about what food companies do to ingredient labels to cast a little shade on things, make them a little harder to understand. They basically are tricking you into not having the full picture on things. So I had done with my wife, and I had said in the last video we were going to do a healthy cooking segment where we would cook some food and have things with the holidays approaching that would be good alternatives to eating badly. And we did it. We did the food prepping, we did the cooking, filming, editing, the whole thing. And when it came to push the publish button, I just wasn't proud of it. I just didn't feel like it was the kind of topic that I wanted to cover. It felt a little too fluffy, and I want to be taken seriously, despite having a stuffed dumbbell on a shelf over there. So we're going to get right to it. The 6 things that food companies do, they don't want you to know they're doing. I'm going to start first off with sugar, the sugar shuffle. So when it comes to sugar, when you turn around the box and you see the ingredient list there, you probably are already aware it goes down in descending order by how much of that ingredient is within that product. So the first thing you see is going to have the most of it. The last one on that list is going to have the smallest amount of something. So if you have an ingredient and then you see the word sugar and then there's a comma instead of a period, you're going to go a little further down the list and you're going to see dextrose, and you might see maltose or fructose or corn syrup. All of these things are also sugar. So make no mistake, your body is going to respond to it by raising your blood sugar level, regardless of what the label calls it. It's sugar. All right, guys, so here's kind of a crazy one for you. The major food companies in this country typically also export to other countries, Europe, other parts of the world. And they have 2 sets of standards that they use. So when it's food being made and manufactured and consumed in this country, there's a certain set of standards that they use. When it goes overseas, things like red 40 dye, brominated oils, potassium bromate, those are all things that are banned because they are unhealthy for you, and they send them off to Europe without those products in it. But here in our country, they're still in the food. And you have to kind of ask yourself, what's the purpose of that? Why is it okay to give healthier, better versions of your product overseas and keep the rest of us over here with things that in some cases it's sugar as well? So there's also a large company in Europe, in Switzerland, that you've all heard of, that will feed their own citizens one version and send a higher sugared version over to our country. In one case specifically that I'm thinking of that I just read about in The Guardian, it's sugar. A lot of excess sugar added to baby formula and baby food. You have to ask yourself why you're putting sugar into food that infants and children, our grandchildren, are going to be consuming. So the second thing I want to talk about is serving size shuffle. When you take a product, you turn it around, you got a bag of potato chips in your hand, you look at the ingredient list and you see how much sodium is in there, how much fat. You decide that, you know what, it's Sunday, I'm watching the football game. Look, life happens, I get that. But if you're going to sit down and then honestly eat the entire bag of potato chips, you really ought to make sure you're doing the math and realizing what you're really putting in your body. These serving sizes, they're designed, they're intentionally ridiculous. It could be 2 potato chips and it could be half a bowl of cereal. Whatever the product is that's in your hand, just make sure that you know how much you're actually consuming. Same thing's going to apply for drinking in terms of serving size. If you're going to get a liter of Coke and you're probably going to pour a pretty good sized glass and some ice cubes and so forth in there and maybe a little rum, if you have that much, you have to make sure you look and see if that serving size is a half a cup and you're pouring yourself a full glass, you might be getting 1.5 cups. Take the number of calories, take the amount of sugar, multiply it times 3. Be realistic, because you're not going to be getting more than you actually bargained for. Okay, so this brings me to number 3, which is the 0-gram loophole. The FDA allows anything under 0.5, whether it be a trans fat or a sugar. If it's under 0.5, the food companies are allowed to go ahead and call it 0. So if you're looking at a product and you're seeing, okay, zero calories, the reality is it could have as much as half a gram of sugar in it. You add that to the serving size where you're actually having 3 or 4 times more than what they're giving you in the ingredient list, and you're starting to run into some trouble there. So just be aware. Zero doesn't always mean zero, according to the FDA and according to some of these food companies. So the fourth thing I want to talk about is what's called proprietary blend. It's a tactic that you'll see, especially in the nutrition world. You turn around, you look at that label, and it'll say proprietary blend. Okay. It doesn't tell you how much of anything is in there. It may say creatine, and then it says caffeine and so forth. But it might be a ton of caffeine and a fairy dust sprinkle worth of creatine, and you would never know. You want transparency from a company. You want somebody that's going to list out what the items are in that are special to their product and how much of each one of those items is in there. So I just want to take a minute in here, guys, and just say that I know life happens. I know that there's no one perfect food product. You can't walk around on eggshells making sure that every choice you make is the perfect choice. Understood. I'm just trying to give you as much as I can, some enlightenment into the things you can look out for and do a little better with. Okay, so number 5 is really a collection of a small bunch of little ones. The first is the word wholesome. No legal definition for the word wholesome at all. You can have a wholesome cookie and it has 50 grams of sugar within it. So the next one is made with, and it's another tricky one that you can say without having any real way of defining. So you could say made with fruit juice. You could say made with whole wheat. That made with fruit juice might just be a couple of drops of lemon added to an otherwise chemically laden product, and therefore right away you can say made with lemon juice. So another one would be the word light. You see light, whether it's L-I-T-E or L-I-G-H-T, right, properly spelled. You assume right off the bat that that means there's probably less calories or less fat in this than the original. And sometimes, maybe even most of the time, that's true. But the reality as well is that they are legally allowed to call it light just because you could put the two bottles next to one another and they've formulated one where it's a little bit lighter colored. So you got to make sure you flip it around and see, is it indeed lower calories or lower fat? Or is it just a lighter color of the same product? So another one would be the popular buzzword superfood. There is no legal or scientific definition of superfood. It's a term used for blueberry and for kale and so forth. There's no criteria for what a superfood is supposed to mean. Another one that you might see is fortified or enriched. You might see something that says fortified with 12 essential vitamins and minerals. The reality is, if it hadn't been stripped out of that product in the first place when it was being manufactured, it wouldn't have to be getting added back in and being called fortified or enriched with. So this last one is the one that really gets me. Natural flavors. You are looking through the ingredients, you see it says natural flavoring. You just decide, well, what can be wrong with that? It's not artificial flavoring. The list of ingredients that are allowed to be called natural have a subset which is in the hundreds, none of which have to be individually identified. So it's this umbrella sort of layover thing where they just say natural ingredients and boom, you've got a black curtain pulled out in front of somebody and they can put whatever they want in the back end and call it a natural ingredient. If it's not from Mars, I mean, anything on Earth is a natural ingredient. That includes arsenic. So what I typically do when I see natural flavors or natural ingredients is I put it back on the shelf. That's a red flag to me. If you can't tell me what's in there and you have to blanket it behind a curtain of sort of mystery, then it's not of interest to me. I'm more worried about that than I would if I at least knew what that ingredient was and I could make a judgment call about whether I wanted it in my body or not. So again, natural ingredients, one of the first things that should make you nervous. If you remember back in the day, the mullet, I used to have a mullet, I used to have hair. Business in the front, party in the back. This is essentially the opposite. It's a reverse mullet going on here. The front of the box is full of all the pretty colors and the claims and the parties in the front. But if you turn it around to the business side, which is in the back, you're going to find the information you need to make proper decisions. So thanks, Mom, for the mullet picture. Okay, so that's going to do it for our whistleblower series here on what these food companies do in order to kind of obscure the facts and make things a little more difficult to decipher. I have another video I did where there's a hack that'll help you understand protein on the back of a label and how best to work your way around that as well. So that'll be up in the corner here. And as always, guys, thanks. Like, subscribe, share, and so forth. And I'll see you guys in the next one.